I turned it on to local recorder, but I don't know if it's actually working. All right, it's working now. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Nathanius here, and with another top Terran trick tutorial. This time, I'm bringing you a game from my latter experience. This is a Terran versus Zerg game, and what I'm basically going to be showing you today is just a standard TvZ build that I like a lot. This is a little bit more on the advanced side of things, since you're going to be dealing with a very micro-heavy build order, and this is exclusively for TvZ. You can do this on any map. I prefer smaller maps like Prion Terraces, Orbital Shipyard, and if you're feeling it, you can also do this on Larolat Crest as well, but maybe not cross spawns, and not cross spawns Ruse of Ceres. I don't like this for Dusk Towers either. On those maps, I generally prefer to go for a fast Liberator range rush. So with that being said, this is a TvZ. My opponent's build isn't really important. It doesn't really matter. I'll leave the production tab up so that you guys can look at that and maybe get any ideas out of it that you may want for you know, your own analysis purposes. So to get to the build order, it's a 14 supply depot, very standard. When the depot is done, you start your barracks, and then we follow it up with a reactor, or excuse me, a refinery. I don't know. I've been streaming for like 8 hours after making this video, so you guys can tell my brain's a little fried. So basically, the quick gist of it is, it's a 2 racks Reaper expand into 5 racks Stim hammer. That's what I call it. I call it a Stim hammer. Not to be confused with the hammer build, which involves doing something really crazy and then losing the game because your opponent did something standard. So you start your second barracks, roughly 18 supply, and then you just keep building SCVs. You don't go for third racks. You don't take a second gas. The purpose of this build order is to give you a lot of pressure to utilize against a Zerg that may either be cheesing you or playing excessively greedy, or if you have good micro or you play at a high level, a lot of firepower to kill people with while also having a good follow-up. So the second supply depot starts around 20 supply, and you get your orbital command literally as soon as the first barracks is done. So roughly around 19, 18 supply. Second barracks finishes, you're just going to crank out a few Reapers. That is the most important part of this. And honestly, I think the music might be a little bit much for a tutorial. Although it did just get epic, but I don't know that we're ready to go full epic. So on the other side of the map, my opponent is doing a relatively aggressive opening. It's a speedling to defend against Reapers. Builds like this are great against 3 racks Reaper or any form of proxy Reaper cheese. But the idea behind this build order, this command center started around 24, 23 supply, by the way. The idea behind this build order is that we get these Reapers to put on pressure and harass. We don't want to build more than 5. We don't build more than 5 Reapers. That's just in case you're wondering. So you want to put pressure on. There are a few things to always look for, of course, because your first Reaper will also act as a scout. In this game, I'm going to be less aggressive with my Reapers because I see that the Queen is already done before the natural. And for those of you who don't know, your spawning pool is usually done around the same time that your natural finishes if you go for a hatch first build as Zerg. So if you ever see Lings or a Queen before a hatchery is done at the natural, you know they went pool first. And because Reapers are so strong in this matchup, it's also important to note that most Zergs who don't go for a fast expand will also get gassed, because otherwise you can deny their natural using Mass Reaper. You need Zergling speed if you're going to delay your hatchery in order to deal with most of the aggressive plays that your opponent can throw at you. So moving forward, the Reaper is going to give you information like I just told you. I know that this person went pool first. I know that there's a likelihood that they'll be aggressive. There's an Overlord here that could also be used for drops. We don't quite know about it yet. So let's go back to the Terran vision, right? We started third barracks. This was at roughly 26, 25 supply. We're still cranking out a few Reapers. We're trying to get up to about 5 is a good amount. And after we start the third barracks, we take our second gas. So this is going to allow us to get a tech lab on our barracks. And we don't want to go too ham on the gas just yet, but the purpose here is to get us up on a normal 2 base setup. This build is a 2 base push. If you do not like playing long games versus Zerg, if you do not like playing against Ultralisks, if you do not like playing against Broodlords, Infestors, all that, this is the build for you. This is what I will call the don't let them get there build, because it is purely designed, if you execute it in micro well enough, to kill your opponent before they get there, to the point where, you know, as Blizzard has told us, the Ultralisks where we are not supposed to use bio anymore. You don't have to use anything other than bio if you kill them before they get to Ultralisks. So, as you can see, we go up to 5 Reapers. I get a tech lab and a factory. The tech lab comes in as soon as basically I've got my 3 racks set up, and I start the factory after the tech lab. If you don't have enough gas to get Stim, it's okay. If you start a factory and then get your tech lab, you will finish Stim around the same time that your medivacs are coming out. So the idea behind this is the factory will build, then we build a reactor with it and get a starport, and that allows us to move straight away into double medevac production so that we can use this to actually get aggressive, and that's the whole point of the build. So we get a bunker at the front. I like to move some SCVs down. Like I said, this build is mapped independent. You can use this on any map. Obviously, this map favors this style, and it's one of the reasons that I like it, because we're doing a very mineral-heavy push, whereas with gold minerals, obviously that's a little bit easier to do. Gold minerals give 7 minerals per return instead of 5. So we set ourselves up. Okay, he pokes me, he harasses me. Like I said, the reason why I don't move out with my Reapers too much in this game is because I know that he opened pool first, so I don't want to die to something like, you know, mass speedling attack or anything like that. So I move my Reapers out once I've got my natural secured. And then the follow-up to this is going to be to add 2 more barracks as well. These extra barracks are a little bit late this game for me. Obviously, I don't play perfectly. This game was against a High Master GM Zerg player. On this account, I pretty much only play versus Grandmasters and Top Masters. And I do just a little bit of Reaper harass. It's not a huge deal. So the whole point of this, get the factory up. Obviously, I'm doing a little bit fancy pants micro with my Reapers right now. But if for the lesser skilled players, if you aren't being attacked that much by Zerg, you can just use the Reapers defensively and then try to execute this build as best you can. So I start the reactor on the factory and then go for the starport and add 2 racks. You can get the 2 racks before the factory and the starport if you did a lot of Reaper micro early on, because you'll probably be floating some minerals, which is totally fine. For the purposes of this game, our opponent is going for a quick 3-base muta. The Reapers do eventually die, but it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. You don't have to do fancy Reaper micro. If you're diamond or above, I would recommend trying it. You know, pushing yourself and pushing your limits is one of the best ways to improve as a player, because even if you have a hard time executing this strategy when you first start doing it, you'll find that over time, you'll make less and less mistakes as long as you keep working at it and keep trying to do it in micro as best as you possibly can. So if you're in the gold to bronze range, you can use the Reapers defensively. Grenades are great for holding off early attacks, but at the same time, you may want to consider another build, as this does give you, you know, this is a pretty micro-intensive build. This is, I would say this build is more for Plat to Master League, and obviously I'm a Grandmaster and use it, and I have beaten pro gamers such as Vibe with this build order, you know, and maybe not as good as, you know, DRG, but should be good enough for you out on the ladder. So the follow-up here, I'm going to take a gas in my natural once the starport is on the way so that I can afford to build medivacs. And as we can see, we also get, just to quickly point out, the reactors, I just get them as soon as I feel comfortable. If you have a bunker that's full of Marines and you don't think that you're about to be all in, you don't think you're about to be attacked, just start your reactors. The whole point is to push with as many Marines as you can. If you're being pressured, if your opponent is attacking you, you don't have to get these reactors. These are purely to make sure, these are purely like an issue of comfort, right? If I'm feeling comfortable, I'll get these reactors really fast. If I'm feeling at risk, I don't get them fast at all. So we get the starport on the reactor, we start building 2 medivacs at once, and then we get, obviously, another couple reactors on the other barracks. So this is a 3-gas setup. I do take the 4th gas eventually for the follow-up, which would either be more starports usually, or siege tanks if you're up against Roach Ravager. I think I'm up against Ling Bane Muta this game, and for the most part, Evolution Chambers, Spire, Ling Speed. Our opponent does make a big mistake this game, but, you know, obviously that's not in my control. So the whole purpose of this is that you opened with Reapers, and if you are, you know, good at microing a little bit, your opponent built a lot of Lings early on. We can see just from this, our opponent has a pretty low drone count. They built a lot of Lings in the beginning of the game because we built so many Reapers. And the idea is that we commit to Reapers, but we don't commit too much. And then they kind of slow themselves down. So they invest more into defending in the early game. And this makes that mid game a little bit easier for us to punch right in. So moving forward again, we have have, okay, he's going to get upgrades, he's going to go to mutas. We're going to start combat shield as soon as it's done. But when we get our first 2 medivacs, this is the whole point of this build. You're going to hit at around 6 minutes, as we can see from this game, maybe between 5.5, 6:30. From 5:30 to 6:30 is when you want to be pushing out, ideally. And the whole point of this is that we haven't done any drone damage this game, but our opponent has been kind of hurt by themselves going for all of these tech, but going for those early lings to deal with the Reapers. Dealing with the Reapers is a big fear of many Zerg players. So all you got to do is get inside their heads and make them think it's 3 racks Reaper or 5 racks Reaper, and that's what's going to allow you to do a lot of damage. So my follow-up here is going to be a 3rd command center. It's going to be 2 engineering bays. These starports, I like to get kinky. I'm just going to be straight up with you. I like going for a lot of Liberators, Banshees. I don't like building Ghosts because I feel Ghosts are really easy for Zerg players to mess with. And obviously he's going for some muted counter harass. I don't think it's a big deal because I've got 5 racks with reactors. Well, 4 racks with reactors, but 5 racks pumping out Marines is going to be more than enough to push Mutalisks out of my base. And then, of course, when the turrets, I can get turrets when the E-bays are done. If you're, and that's, another thing that's important to keep in mind. If you are having trouble with things like mutas when you do this build, really fast mutas, just squeeze the engineering bay in there a little bit earlier. It's okay. You don't have to get it when you push out. You could get it before you push out, and that would allow you to build a turret as you leave your base so that you're safe the whole time. I just cut as many corners as possible because in Grandmaster League, that's what you do. So, and then basically you're just going to move in. I know that his creep is here, so I think to myself, if his creep is this far out, he's probably got this base. I already knew he had this base because I was attacking it earlier with my Reapers. First thing I go for is the Queen. I don't want him to transfuse or inject. And this game is pretty easy because there's no Banelings. So the lack of Banelings makes it really easy for me to obviously win this game. But a lot of Zerg players that play greedily may find themselves in a situation where they either don't have that many Banelings, but with this many Marines, you can just right-click or attack, focus fire down a few Banelings like this, and then there's nothing the Zerg player can do. You have a lot of Marines. The whole point of this build is that you have way more Marines than you normally would. This obviously is a build that's going to be a little bit weaker to some Roach Baneling all-ins, but the whole point is that you use your Reapers early on to scout. If you get good vision of their base with your Reapers at the start of the game, even if you throw them away, as long as you know what your opponent's doing, you should be okay. For anyone that's wondering, Nate, what do I do if I scout that it's a really fast Roach Horn? I've beaten people that go fast Roach Horn. You just want to get 2, 3, 4 bunkers. It's okay. You're going to have a ton of Marines with Stim, and as soon as Stim is done, you're going to absolutely crush an early Roach Ravager attack. Just remember that Roaches are slow, and Marines with Stim will crush them, and Ravagers have less health than Roaches, so they're easy to beat. And that's it. If you don't feel comfortable going this style, obviously even I float resources. Drop a tech lab on your factory, get some tanks. I wanted to go 3 starport because I'm crazy, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this build order tutorial of sorts. I'll put build order notes in the description below. And make sure you like, favorite, subscribe, and also check out my Twitch TV channel, twitch.tv/Nathanius, where I do some of this live. I actually recorded this video live. This is the first one that I've done on stream. And thank you guys for your support. You're the reason why I do this. And we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.